Alright guys, I appreciate you clicking on this video. This is going to be a sonar for dummies. This is for people who have never used a fish finder yet, or maybe are new to it, or I don't know, maybe just need a refresher course. A lot of guys asked for this, and I hope this helps you out. So let's get started. I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible, and I'll add more to these as we go, getting a little more complex each time. So let's start out with the colors we're seeing here. The reason a color fish finder is so much better than an old monochrome or a liquid crystal with the grayscale is because we can tell the intensity of our returns. Now, what's a return? A return is anything on the screen. Okay, if you look where all the colors are on this screen, from the top to the bottom, you see yellow at the top, and you see yellow and red at the bottom and blue. Basically, 3/4 to the left of the screen. That's all a history. Okay, that's things we've passed over or things that have passed under our transducer, and that's the history. Okay, that's just telling us what we already passed over. Towards the right, you're going to see a gray bar. Okay, you see a 0 here at the top. Between that 0 and the 40 at the bottom, there's a gray bar. It's kind of jagged on the right side, but smooth on the left. That's our A scope. All newer fish finders have an A scope you can turn on. It doesn't matter what brand you have. This is a Simrad NSS Evo 3. The Lowrance units have them as well. Turn your A scope on. That's really going to help you learn what's happening here. So you're going to see the yellow at the top. That's our surface. And the reason all those returns are up there is because the surface gets churned up as we're moving. Waves churn it up. Our prop churns it up. Lots of things are floating in the surface. Pine needles, pollen, leaves, whatever. So all that clutter up there is just stuff that's churned up. Just noise on the surface. You could pretty much ignore that. There are settings to remove that, but I wouldn't remove that until you get really good with your fish finder, because sometimes bait is very close to the surface and we don't want to lose those. So basically that's what that is. Let's jump to the bottom. Now on the very bottom of the screen, you're going to see a very hard yellow bar. That is our bottom. That's just the bottom of the water right there. That's the bottom of the lake, river, ocean, whatever you see. That's the hard bottom. Now there are different palettes in your fish finder. A palette is just an assortment of colors you choose. This is one of my favorite palettes. It's just easier to see for me. It's a Lowrance color. It's one of the older colors, and it's here with the Simrad as well. And if we look at our bottom right away, we see yellow. So that means our hardest returns are going to be yellow. The biggest fish, hard rocks, anything that is large and strong in the water will be yellow. So that tells us if we're looking for fish, we want to see that yellow. We're looking for big fish. That yellow is good, right? And you can see it fade down eventually to white at the bottom. It goes to that reddish orange, then to blue, then to white. So blue is the weakest return and white is no return. So that tells us a lot. As we see our fish in the water, if we see yellow, we know it's a bigger fish probably, or it's just in the center of the cone of the transducer and it's absorbing a lot more energy, so it looks brighter. Again, I'm trying to keep this simple as I can. I hope I'm not, giving you too much info, but let's talk about how sonar works. All right, we have a transducer. It's either mounted on the transom, or it's through the hull, or it's in the hull. This here is a through hull. It doesn't matter. They all work the same basically when you're moving slowly, okay? The way a transducer works is it sends a signal straight down from the transducer. It's facing down, so it's going to send a signal or a ping or a pulse, whatever you want to call it, straight down to the bottom. When it hits the bottom, it's going to bounce up, come right back to the transducer. Anything that interrupted that pulse's travel will show up in your A scope there. The A scope is what's under your transducer right this second. It's now. It's real time. So you'll see different color dashes in there. The colors, again, tell us the strength of the return. Yellow is the strongest, blue is the weakest, and that reddish orange is in between. So the transducer tells you what's under the boat right now in that A scope. Anything to the left of that A scope is a history. That's stuff we've already passed by. Your transducer, the way it behaves, it shines down like a flashlight would. So if you shine a flashlight and you put your hand right up to it, you'll see a small circle on your hand of light. If you look at that same light on a barn door that's maybe 50 feet away, it's a giant circle, right? Well, your transducer behaves the same way. It shines straight down, it gets wider as it goes. So you may see, like even in this shot here, you see a lot more fish towards the bottom than the top. There might be just as many fish all the way through this water column, but because your transducer is so narrow at the top, it's not going to have as many returns. Not as many fish are going to break the beam because the beam is narrower. So you got to keep that in mind. When you're deeper you are, the wider your cone, the more things you're going to interrupt the pulse or the ping, so the more returns you're going to get. All right, let's talk about the shape of the returns. You're going to see they look like arches. If your fish finder is set up correctly and you're moving 4, 5, 6 miles an hour, you should see arches like this. If you're getting half arches, your transducer may need to be adjusted. So an arch. Why an arch? Well, the hardest return you're going to get from a fish is from their air bladder. Now with these new transducers these days and the new high-tech chirp sonar, we don't need the air bladder like we did. We still mark the fish itself, but the air bladder really helps. It gives you a really sharp return, very high contrast. So it looks like an arch because as we're moving, let's say the fish are still in this situation. Transducer beam or pulse, aiming straight down, it's going up the fish's air bladder and down the other side. So you can see it looks like an arch. And it looks like an arch because we're moving. We're up and down. We're right across the fish and we keep moving. If your returns are very long and wormy, it usually happens and it usually means we're going slow or the fish is just inside the pulse of your transducer for a longer period of time. So if you're sitting still, if we were going 0 miles an hour here, all these would look like worms. Okay, they wouldn't look like arches. So fish look like arches when we're moving and they look like long, thin worms when we're sitting still. Very important to know. Sometimes you can look at it and say, wow, those are huge fish. They may not be. If you're going very slow, chances are it's just getting returned, sending return marks back over and over and over and over again. And it's just sitting under your transducer, absorbing all that energy. And the history makes it look like it's very long because it's just sitting there under your transducer. So those are good things to know. Also, the strength of the return. You'll see some of these returns here. Some of these arches have yellow in them. Okay, if I see a lot of arches with yellow, that's a good sign. It usually means they're bigger fish. In this case, I know this was a lot of bait. I just know because we were netting it, we were catching it. So you see a yellow inside the return, that's a good sign. If you see a lot of arches with yellow, chances are those are bigger fish, stronger returns. Now you're going to see some of these only have the orangish, red, or the blue. It could mean a few things. It could mean they're smaller fish, or it could mean it's near the edge of the cone of your transducer. So it's giving you a weaker signal. They could be, every one of these fish could be the exact same size here. If they were all in the same position on your transducer, they would all be yellow. But they're not all in the same area of the transducer. Some are on the edge, some are on the center. If they're in the center, they're more yellow. If they're on the edge, they're more blue and reddish. I hope that's not too confusing, but that's the way the transducer works. More information, you'll see over here to the left, we have our depth. And then below that, we have our temperature. It says 59.0 degrees Fahrenheit. That is the temperature at the water the transducer is sitting in. So that transducer is maybe a foot into the water. That is the surface temperature of the water within a foot of the surface. Right where the transducer is, that's the temperature. It's not the temperature any further down into the water column. Okay. Below that, we have our frequency. That is the frequency our transducer is operating at. I have some other videos on chirp frequencies and swept frequencies and stuff you can look through if you like. But typically, the higher the frequency, the narrower the cone. So if it's a 200 frequency, chances are your cone is narrower. And if it's a lower, like a 50 or an 83, chances are your cone is wider. If I'm searching for fish on plain or in open water, I generally like a wider cone. Okay. Hope this helps you guys out. If you have any questions, please put them there in the comments. I'll be happy to answer every single one. And I'm going to slowly increase the amount of information I'll add here in this Sonar for Dummies series. And I'm adding the regular screenshots as well. So I appreciate you guys watching. Please subscribe if you haven't and ring that little bell to make sure you get alerts. And I'll keep these going for you guys. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask. I appreciate you watching. Love you. Mean it. Hey guys, thanks for clicking on this one. This is the second video in the series, Sonar for Dummies. If you haven't seen the first video, I definitely recommend checking it out. I will put a link to it in the description here. And I'll put a link to this video here in that description so you can find your way back. All right, let's get started on this one. Each time I add a video to this series, I'm going to add a little more information using more and more complex screenshots as we go. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them all. All right, let's get started on this. Right away, we're going to start with some bait. You can see we have 3 clouds of bait here. You can see they are bright yellow. They have all the colors of our palette there. So we can see it's bright yellow in the center. That means it is a very dense school of bait. It's probably tiny bait. It is threadfin shad, I know that. We were netting it and it was very tiny. So when you see a very dense school like this, chances are it's very tiny bait, because a very small bait, they can get super close together and all their air bladders kind of, blend all together as one, and it looks like one solid mass. So that's a good way to determine the size of your bait. If you have a nice thick cloud like that, chances are it's small bait. Okay. Now, if that was close to the bottom, it can be confusing. Sometimes you're not sure if it's a tree or a bush. A really great way to tell is you look at the top edge of the bait school. Now, if you look at the top edge here, it's very smooth. That usually means it's a school of bait. If it's rough on the top, it can be a tree or a bush, and you'll see it smooth on the top and rough on the bottom. 9 times out of 10, that is a school of bait. So that's what you want to look for. All right, just below that, we're going to see a bunch of arches here. These are all our fish. These are fish that are just keying on that bait. This would be a great place to fish, because the fish that we're marking aren't just hanging out. They are there to feed. They're underneath the bait. You can see right here, they're actually touching the schools of bait. They're right up in there. And also when you see tight schools of bait like this, it usually means there are fish nearby, and these bait schools are really staying tight together. Now, if we saw these bait schools all busted up and loose, that's even a better sign. It usually means that the fish are thrashing through and breaking them all up. So you can learn a lot about what's going on just by the condition of your bait schools. Something to really pay attention to, All right, our arches are really pretty. They're almost perfectly symmetrical. That means our transducer is set up properly. If our transducer is a little crooked, or if it's tilted up or down too much, we'll get half arches, like check marks, So here we have nice full arches, so we know our transducer is nice and level. So we have our bait schools here, we have our arches. Let's look all the way up to the left here. A little bit shallow water, you can see 2 bumps on the bottom. Those are stumps, okay? And we can tell that they are stumps. It's not bait. It is not fish, because there is no separation. You can see it's connected to the bottom. So when you see a hard return like that, 99 out of 100 times it will be a hard piece of structure, a rock, boulder, stump, whatever. And we know it's not bait because, for one, it's connected to the bottom, and for two, you see the top is rough. The top edge is rough. That means it is probably not a bait school. That's not true all the time, but most of the time, if it's nice and smooth on the top, it is a bait school. So we have no separation on the bottom. That tells us it's a stump or a rock. Now, if you look at these arches here close to the bottom, they look like those stumps. The only difference is we do see space between the arch and the bottom. So that tells us it's a fish. Now, even if you're a flounder fisherman, right, and your flounder are laying, or your fluke are laying right on the bottom, I mean, they're touching the bottom, they're squeezed to the bottom as tight as they can get, you'll still see a space there because that air bladder is a little bit off the bottom. And some of the older transducers won't pick it up as well, but today's new transducers, especially the Airmark Chirp transducers, the technology is so good that it really picks that air bladder up nice. So we can see those arches in the bottom. They do have separation off the bottom, and they are fish. All right, now if you look down here, you're going to see a blue haze at the bottom between 30 feet and 40 feet of water. That blue haze, that is a thermocline, or a section of our thermocline. That is colder water. It is cold water, it is dense water, it is more dense than the water above it. So it actually tricks the transducer into thinking, there's something there, some return there. So that blue haze is our cold, dense water. That's a section of our thermocline, okay? It also helps us fishing, because I won't fish in or below a thermocline. There's not much dissolved oxygen down there, although you can catch fish there and mark fish there. I'm looking for active fish that are happy and they are feeding. So I avoid a thermocline. Just a little side note there. All right, one last thing on this screenshot. You're going to see a second bottom we're marking here in the bottom left corner. If we set our range far enough, you can see we're in 38 feet of water, but the range is set to 60 feet here. That will show our second bottom. Now, if you set the range far enough, you could pretty much always get to a second bottom where you can see some type of second bottom. It's just a quick way to check our bottom density or our hardness. So here our second bottom is very far from our real bottom. So that tells us it's a relatively soft bottom, clay, mud. It is not a hard bottom. So if our second bottom was very close, let's say an inch from our real bottom, that would probably mean it's a rocky or very hard bottom. So that's also a nice little tool there, a little something to mess with when you're on the water, and play with your, your settings when you're out there. You won't hurt it. Play with your range. A lot of the machines today, you can throw them in auto and they do fine. So you could always go back to auto if you're in trouble. But hope you guys dig this one. Like I said in the Sonar for Dummies, I'm going to add more and more each time I put up a screenshot with a little more information each time. If you have any questions or comments, please throw them in the comments below. And please give me a thumbs up. It really helps these videos do well, and it tells me that you like them, so I'll do more and more. Please subscribe if you haven't. Thanks for watching. Stay safe on the water. Love you guys. Mean it. Hey guys, thanks for clicking on this one. This is the third installment of our Sonar for Dummies series. If you haven't seen the first two, I definitely recommend checking those out. I will put the links to those down here in the description. Definitely go watch the first one if you haven't seen that. It'll make this one a whole lot easier to digest. All right, this is a really cool shot. I love this screenshot. You may have seen me use this one before. It tells a fantastic story all in one shot, and it has some information that will really help you out if you're new to sonar. So let's get started on this one. All right, so you're going to see here a whole lot of different sizes and shapes to these returns. Okay, these are all the exact same size fish, more or less. We were in a creek channel here, and I was netting shad. They were small, in the 3-inch to 5-inch range. We were netting them, so I know the size. And what I did was I ran over them on plane, and then I dropped off a plane just to see how they would look different. Okay, so if we talked about a little bit on our first session there about how the ping works, right? Our transducer sends a ping down, and the transducer waits for it to return. When the ping bounces back up, anything that interrupts that ping will show up as a return, right? So the returns on the left here are little tiny dots. The reason they're little tiny dots is we were running 40 miles an hour. Okay, so we're on plane speed. Because we're going so fast, our transducer is moving so fast. Each little fish, each little shad only had a chance to maybe absorb one ping. For argument's sake, let's say they absorbed one ping, okay? So we're cruising quick, one ping hits it, and it shows up as one little dot. So they all look like little dots. Simple as that, really. If you look towards the bottom here on the left side, you'll see those two little arches down here. Those are probably catfish. Lots of catfish here in this lake, probably in the 4 to 5 pound range. So you can see how an arch, even a bigger fish, won't really look like an arch at that speed. It still looks more or less like a dot. I call them light bulbs at that speed. Then in the middle, we're slowing down. We're at about 10 miles an hour, 15, dropping off a plane, and you can see those nice beautiful arches, the arches that everyone wants to see, right, when your fish finder looks great. And then to the right, we are at a crawl. We're down to 0.8 of a mile an hour, so our returns look nice and long, okay? They look wormy, right? So let's back over here to the left again, to the left dotted line. You're going to see the transition where we go from those little dots to little tiny arches, then the medium-sized arches moving to the right, and then finally our worms all the way to the right. Okay, and that transition where it goes from dots to arches, we're dropping off a plane, we're going from 40 miles an hour down to 15 to eventually 10, and the arch looks that way in the middle there because we're cruising at about 10 miles an hour. Although the transducer is moving fast, it's not moving lightning fast. So because it's slower, each fish can absorb a little more energy from the transducer, so it's getting hit with more pings. So the pings move up the fish, up the air bladder, and down the other side of the air bladder as the transducer moves over those shad. So we'll have to picture the shad are standing still, our transducer is moving over them, the pings are going up and down the air bladder and gives us a nice arch, going about 10 miles an hour. So for argument's sake, if the left returns we're absorbing one ping, let's say in the middle there we're absorbing maybe 20 pings. Okay, moving to the right, again this is all for argument's sake. To the right of the furthest right dotted line, you'll see how they look like worms now. They're very flattened out. They're flattened out because they're sitting under the transducer longer. So if the returns all the way to the left are absorbing one ping, for argument's sake, the ones on the right may be absorbing 100. So those returns are just sitting under the transducer longer because we're crawling. We're moving our transducer so much slower that we're hitting each fish with more and more pings. So the history, as the history scrolls from right to left, it shows every ping, right? So if it was pinged 100 times, it's going to look like a long worm. So that's very important to keep that in mind all the time, really. If you're running on plane, if you're anchored, if you're drifting, if you're on trolling speed, how each return can look different. If you're trolling, the arches you're going to see are going to be more like the arches we're looking at in the middle, okay, anywhere from that 5 to 10 miles an hour. If we're just drifting or even anchored, we can have the arches on the right side of the screen where they look long and flat. They can even look perfectly flat and long worm-like. I've had them go all the way across the screen, just one arch, one long worm all the way across the screen, just because that fish is sitting under the transducer and absorbing ping after ping after ping. So the history makes it look like it's like a long water serpent, right, like Nessie or something. But it could be a small fish. In this case, it's a 3 to 5 inch shad, but it can look enormous if it's just sitting under your transducer. All the way to the left, we're running on plane, so we're looking for dots. So a lot of people ask me, they'll say, I'm running on plane and I just can't see fish when I'm on plane. It's probably because you're looking for arches, and you're really not going to see arches at 40 miles an hour. Like I said, even down here where those 2 catfish are, they're not arches. Even though those are decent sized fish, if you look very close, they start to kind of look like an arch, but it's just a dash. So chances are you are marking fish, you're just looking for the arch instead of just a little dot or dash or what I call a light bulb. So this is a great tool to put in your arsenal, understanding your sonar. I hope this one helped you guys out. Please shoot a like on this one and subscribe if you haven't. Putting a like on these videos really does help me out, and I appreciate if you take a second to do that. It lets me know that you guys want more of these. Please stay safe on the water and leave a few for me. Love you, mean it. All right, guys, here we go. This is the 4th video in the Sonar for Dummies series. Got so much positive feedback from this, so I'm going to keep it going. Try to do one, at least one a week. It's tough. I'm fishing a lot right now, but I'm definitely going to try my best. So here we go. All right, this is a great shot here. It kind of gives examples of the things that we talked about in the first 3 videos. Right away, you're going to see a giant worm across the screen. Remember, we talked about sending a ping down, and the ping bounces off the bottom. Anything that interrupts the ping shows up as a return. And we spoke about, if you go over the fish really fast, the boat is moving fast, you may only hit the fish with 1 ping, so you only get like 1 little dot on the screen. And when a fish spends a lot of time under the transducer, it can absorb a lot of pings. So the history makes it look like it's a giant fish, but it's not. It's one fish who's just sitting under your transducer, and we're just pinging the heck out of them, over and over again. So you can see this one long worm here. There's several, but this one here, check this one out. Now you could see as the fish is moving around under the boat, like right here, the return here in the history is yellow. So that is our strongest return, right? Because bottom is yellow, which is our strongest return. So we relate that, right? Yellow is our strongest return in this palette. So you can see where it's yellow right here. And then as it's moving to the right here, which is closer to our present time, it weakens in signal. But the fish really has only moved down a few feet. So why is it weak? Well, it probably moved to the left or to the right and is now at the edge of the cone. So when it's at the edge of the cone, it doesn't absorb as much energy, and it shows as a weaker signal. It doesn't mean the fish is any smaller, So when you see a school of fish and the arches can look all different sizes or all different colors, it doesn't mean they're smaller fish. It just means they're probably at the edge of the cone that the transducer is sending down. So the ping is probably just barely getting them. So you can see this fish was definitely moving around down there. So let's talk a little bit more about what we're seeing here. If you look in our A scope, we see our marks here. We got a lot of yellow, and down by the bottom, some of the pink color, they're reddish. That's just all fish that are sitting right under the boat. Now at this time, the boat is doing 0 miles an hour. We have the anchor lock set on our motor guide, so the trolling motor is just sitting the boat perfectly still. And we're over the school of stripers, and we're jigging them up. So if you see all these zigzags up and down, you'll see one here, and then you'll see a lighter one down here to the left in light blue. We had 3 or 4 guys working jigs up and down under the boat. So that's what that is. That's the jigs going up and down. Now make sure you stay till the end of this one, because I have a live video of this exact screenshot happening, and I talk about what is actually happening under the boat. So that's pretty cool. And all right, so let's see here. We got our zigzags going up and down. That's our jig going up and down. And again, back to this one fish here, this one long worm. If you notice, he's right along that zigzag up and down. That fish came up from the bottom. If you look all the way to the left here, that fish was on the bottom, and it came up and it looked at the jig, and it hung with the jig the whole time we were jigging it. Never did bite it, but it was very interested in it. You can see how it stayed right with that jig, and we'll see that in the video as well. Now you'll see down here is a whole school of stripers. They're just very interested in that jig, and you can see how whoever was working that jig, at this point right here, they saw the school of fish on the screen and dropped the jig. So it dropped it probably 10 feet or so, from 20 to 30 feet, to try to get in that school and, you know, talk him into eating. So that's what that is. You can see the jig moving down. Now if we just went by the A-scope here, man, it would be so hard to determine that's what was happening. But you can see how that history scrolls from right to left. It just paints such a beautiful picture, you know, and shows really what was happening. Also at the top here, you're going to see this haze, this very thick haze. We were in a mouth of a creek, and we had a lot of rain, and it washed all the pollen and everything down. There was a haze on top of the water. So that's what that is. That's just a thick pollen that was just sitting in the top, you know, 10 or 15 feet of water. So let's go to the live footage here of us on the water. And it was really cool because I was fishing with a buddy, and his wife was with us, and she's actually a really experienced fisherman, but she's more of a largemouth bass fisherman who's, you know, cast and pound the banks a lot. And she didn't have a lot of experience with a fish finder, so I wasn't going to do a fish finder video. We were just jigging, and she happened to ask me some really good questions while we were out there. She said, all right, what am I looking at here? And while I explained what was going on, I realized that I had some really good footage at the end of the day. So I'm going to put this one up here, and I think it's a pretty good one. Pretty strong. So again, if you have any comments, please put them down there. If you want to see a particular screenshot, or if you have specific questions, I'll do my best to answer every single one. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and ring the little bell so you get notifications, and shoot a like on this. If you hit the little thumbs up, it really helps me out, and it also lets me know that you want more of these videos. And just a real quick note, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that I got so many views on this, and really nobody complained about the title, Sonar for Dummies. I love that about the fishing crew, man. I just love that all about the fishing guys. That's why I always call them brothers. You know, we're family for sure, and I just love that no one cried about it. Fishing for Dummies, I mean, you know, Sonar for Dummies, the For Dummies title has been used for years. It just means learning made easy, and I love that nobody complained about it. It's so cool about you guys. All right, man, enjoy. I hope this helps out, and keep looking for more of these. Check back for sure. Love you, mean it. Stay safe out there. They're curious. They are coming right up. Look at that. There's,
I don't know what.
There's a few off to the side too. These two right here just came right up to look at that jig. Someone's jigging up and down, and these two came right up to look at it. There's another one in the mix. I'd still be the same one, but basically, you see this section here that's all fluttery? That's directly under us right this second. This is just a history, but that's what's under the boat right now. And they're hanging there. They're hanging there, we're gonna hang here. So you'll see, like, if you look at it and feel what you're doing, you can figure out which jig is yours. Yours is going down, that what? Now stop. Okay, that's you right there. See how it just stopped?
Okay.
And now drop it. And you'll see it go down. So now when the fish comes up, you can figure out if he's looking at yours or... I believe this fish here was just looking at yours the whole time you were jigging it. See him? He's very interested in your bait.
This ain't on the map, right?
That's hysterical. That's right. Look at that. That fish is coming up fast right there. Three or four of them, 2 or 3. Someone's gonna whack one right there. They're racing up to get it. Racing up to get it. Right back down. Right back down. All right, you see we're here. It's summertime, so these fish are deep. The water's warm, 82 degrees. These are the jigs working up and down. These are striped bass in the small 3 to 5 pound range, maybe some up to 7, 8 pounds, 30 inches. You can see our jig here. It's enough to entice these fish to come up and look, but they're not hitting it. And it's yeah, it's midday. Sometimes these fish have just been eating all morning. You know, they're gorged out chasing these baits, and we just need to wait for them to get hungry or figure out what we can do to make it irresistible to them. But that hour or two before dark, when it comes time to strap the feed bag on, is usually enough. But the more fish in the mix, the better, not for obvious reasons, but you get more fish in there, a bigger group will tend to eat when they're not hungry if there's more fish around. The old competition factor, you know. But we have the spot lock or the anchor lock, the motor guide anchor lock, just holding us right here, and that's all we can do. Just gotta work it, figure out what they're gonna not be able to pass up. I got the crew though. Look at all kinds of iron going down there. Look at these. Come right up. This fish is just, so you can see here and here, it was just completely infatuated with this jig going up and down, trying to figure it out, but just doesn't want to take it. You see it come up, it's looking at it, it's just sitting. That fish is just sitting right in that jig. Come and get it. Drop it right on his head. Drop it right on his head. Something. Give him a headache. There you go. Look at that. Screenshot. Thanks for clicking on this one, guys. This is the 4th video in the Sonar for Dummies series. It has proven to be pretty popular, so I'm going to keep it rolling for you guys. If you have anything specific you'd like to see in one of these videos, please put it in the comments. If you have any questions, please put those in the comments as well. I do my best to answer every single one. If you haven't subscribed, I'd appreciate it if you would, and shoot a thumbs up on this video because it tells me you want more of these, and it also helps me out. So let's get started on this one. This one is how we pinpoint fish that we mark on our sonar. First of all, you have to do this when the fish are deeper. You know, the deeper the fish are, the easier it is for you to do this because your cone from your transducer gets wider as the water gets deeper. So you are able to see these fish a whole lot better when they are down deeper. Typically summertime, you know, in freshwater. So this is from a lake right here. You can see pretty deep, 133 feet. All of these horizontal lines you see, those are our baits. So that is the lead line, you know, the lead weight with our live herring swimming on the hook. So right here you're going to see a pretty heavy line, and right under it you're going to see a thinner line. Right there you can see it kind of goes up and down. These little thin blue lines are the herring. That's just the herring swimming along that's on our hook. We have a pretty long leader here, several feet, so the herring can swim around. So the stable lines that you see are the lead weights, and the little faint blue lines that move up and down are our herring. So you can kind of use what you know about that to pinpoint these exact fish that are feeding. So you can see the arches. Arches that zigzag up and down like this are good news. That means these fish are active, they're looking for bait, they're responding to your bait, and we caught quite a few fish this day. So in this video, right after this shot, you're going to see how we pinpoint the exact fish we see on the sonar and work to catch that exact fish. So stay with this one. You're going to see some really cool instances on how we use sonar to pinpoint individual fish, even some side scan stuff in this one. So I appreciate you guys watching. If you haven't seen the first 4 videos in this series, I'll put the links here in the description. I would definitely watch those first because it'll all make more and more sense if you watch them in order. Thanks guys, I appreciate you watching. Love the support. Can't thank you guys enough. Stay safe on the water. Leave a few from me. Love you. Mean it. Alright, here we go. We are on a lake here. We are over deep water. We're fishing 4 down lines with herring, live herring on them. We are only fishing 4 lines so we can keep track of all 4 on the fish finder. So we can watch all 4 lines at once and see when a fish is interested and adjust the line accordingly. With 113 feet or whatever, you know, we have a lot of room for up and down. You know, if you're just a few feet below the fish, you won't hook up. You got to be slightly over the fish. Sometimes you got to be right on top of them. Sometimes these deep fish are not feeding, but they will take a bait if you whack them right in the face with it. So this is a very effective way of catching those fish. So what you're going to see here is a guy with a visor on. He's sitting down. That's Joey. Okay, behind the helm is myself and my buddy Steve, Striper Steve Knight. So we're watching the screen. Steve tells Joey to drop his bait. He can see his bait go down to a mark, you know, a nice arch. Fish doesn't look. He tells Joey to drop it again on that arch, and he hooks up. So let's check this out right now as it goes. It's very, very, very good stuff right here, and you can really see how effective your fish finder can be in deep water.
All right, this is what happened. I'm
trying to get the dang thing.
I want to show you on the screen what just happened
Take
here.
them on up there around that trolling motor so they don't wipe out that other rod over there. Go on up there. They're way down around that motor.
Steve was looking at these two fish right here, and Joe had this line right here, and Steve goes, drop it, and he saw these two. So he dropped it, leveled out. He says, drop it again. He dropped it and went right, bunked that fish right in the head. You can see right here, that fish just said, "What? I want it." He hooked up, and that's him bringing it up. And he's hooked up right now. Same exact thing just happened. There's that fish right there. I'm telling you, it's not the same one. This was the first one, and that's the one that just happened now.
Nope, he's getting underneath, go underneath that motor over here. He's gonna wipe these other ones out.
You can go all the way around. That's it. You're doing good.
Way down in the water.
You grab that line. We can all do it. It'll be a team effort. He just brought that bait up from here, right up into these stripers we came across. He just brought it up to here, and he saw that fish come and look at it. From here, came and look at it. Look at him chase that bait. These leaders are a little long, so they can chase them all over the place.
Right.
There's a good one right there.
Come on. You're looking at it right now. Here he is.
Oh, get it out, get it out, get it out. Nice. There you go, nice.
All right, I had a lot of requests for some side scan stuff, so I'm going to start with this one here. I'll add some more later on, but this is a great example how side scan is so important for what I do anyway. If you're fish any water less than 150 feet, it is extremely useful. So right now I'm looking at the screen. Normally we would be casting our baits up to the bank, right? That's your natural, kind of instinct. But I look at the screen and I see that they're on the deep side. I'm marking some fish out near the main river channel on the deep side. So instead of pounding the bank, we go ahead and cast on the left side, and we caught those fish. Now it was a very slow day. We only caught a few fish all day long, and little things like this are just invaluable, So let's watch this one go on, and you'll see a few nice fish here caught because of side scan.
Oh yeah.
I'm pointing those fish out to Zach right there, and you can see here on the screenshot those 4 striped bass that you can see, and those are the shadows. And lower on the screen you can see the shadows off to the left. Now we're not marking those fish, which means they're probably higher in the water column and we only saw the shadows. I'm going to add some more side scan videos to this in our Sonar for Dummies to break all this stuff down further, but you can see how just by taking a quick look here, we saw those fish out to the left side, we cast it out there, and we caught fish. Such a great tool.
Yeah, that was a bite. Just had a bite. It was probably about 15 or 20 foot out from the boat where that one hit. There he is, striper. Got him. Nice. Peel and drag off.
They're the ones we marked, bro.
Peel and drag. That ain't no bad green bass.
On the deep side, you just haven't moved up yet, I guess.
It must be just off the end of that point. Look,
at that.
there they are.
Yeah.
Got a little side scan, huh?
Holy cow, you're not kidding.
This is no 5-pounder, son.
Man, he's really cool.
He sure as hell is, bro.
Hey.
I really. He's moving a little too quick.
Oh, that's a nice striper, bro.
Oh, you gotta love that, dude. You just gotta love it.
Pretty fish.
Blue and silver. BKD. Really good looking fish, man. About a 24-inch fish. Beautiful.
Okay, we are fluke fishing here in Long Island, and you can see that's what fluke looked like on the bottom. See that color there that's just above the green? We just passed over it. I'm gonna back up. You see it's a solid bottom here the whole way, and these are sand eels right here, and that's fluke on the bottom right underneath those sand eels. That's that air bladder gives them away. Even though they're hanging really close to the bottom, on the bottom, like they're part of the bottom, that air bladder always gives them away. And with this chirp sonar, with this Evo 2, the Simrad Evo 2, man, you're not going to get away. And there you go. He just caught that fish. All right.
Oh, that's
Look. He just lost that fluke, and here he is going right down to the bottom. That Simrad is a maniac. Look at this display, Dre. Check this out. That's that fluke going back down to the bottom.
Really?
Yep. Here's where the fluke was. Yeah. And these two thin lines, that's his jig. Okay, this is the fish coming up to look at the bait. That's the fish coming up to look at the bait. One of these he bit it. I'm gonna say it's that one because that's later. He fought the fish up. See, he fought the fish up. And that's where the fish came off. He shot straight to the bottom like an arrow.
Hey guys, thanks for clicking on this one. This is lesson 6 in the Sonar for Dummies series. I'm going to put the links to the first 5 down in the description because it will definitely help if you watch those first. I'm not going to talk for very long. I'm going to get right to the video. I have some really good video here. The most common comment I receive is, where is the fish after it leaves my A-scope? How do I catch that fish? Where exactly is it? In this video, I'm going to tell you everything I know about that and how to find that fish. We have more technology than ever before. And the only time we truly know where that fish is when it's in the A-scope. After that, it's just in the history, and that's a moment in time. It's not a moment in distance. But our technology is fantastic these days, and in this video, I'll show you exactly how to keep an eye on those fish and how to track them as best you can. Thanks for watching, guys. Let's get to it right now. Please subscribe if you haven't, and give it a thumbs up. It really helps me out, guys. Love you. Mean it.
That was a school of white bass right there. But if you want to set a waypoint on it, you can just touch it, hit your check mark, waypoint that cursor, and now we have a mark on it. Come over to our chart, and there it is. That's that waypoint right there. So the most common question I get about a fish finder is, after you pass over a fish, they want to know where that fish is, and it's kind of hard to describe. You got to keep in mind that after you mark a fish, anything that's in the history is just a picture of what you passed over. The scroll speed has nothing to do with where those fish are. Imagine if all the fish are on the screen, you take a screenshot, and now that screenshot just moves over to the left and out of your way. That's what your history is. It has nothing to do with where the fish are. It's just a moment in time. So everything that's in the A-scope here is directly under the boat now. Once it's past that A-scope, this is just the history. It's just a picture of what happened. That does not help us at all finding the fish. The quickest way and easiest way to find out exactly where those fish are, look at this, the boat coming in between both of us. The easiest way to find those fish is touch the screen. You just touch the screen here on those marks. That fish is 107, that mark is 112, 117, see it's getting further and further away from us. But now we know where that mark was. Doesn't help a whole lot because that fish is swimming. You know, we don't know where that fish is, but we're using it to find isolated schools. So It's quite difficult to know what happens when the fish leaves the A-scope. We don't know where that fish is. There's really no quick answer for you. All we know is what's in the A-scope right now. Once it leaves us, it's just a picture that's moving away. It's just a still picture that's moving away from us. This may help you here determine where these fish are after you've passed over them. All the Simrads are like this, and I believe most of the late model Lowrances are the same. You just touch on any mark here and it tells you where that mark was. So you can see the number is 175 and it's growing as we're leaving it. So the short answer is, if you want to know where that fish is or where that mark was, just touch it. Tells you where it was. That's the best way. Now the fish obviously could have swam away, and I'm sure it did. But for those of you asking, you know, after the fish passes under the boat, where the heck is it? Well, our transducer is looking down. It was under the boat. It was the depth it says when it passes through the A-scope. After we leave it, the fish could swim completely different, in a different spot, different speed, could be gone. We could scare it away, who knows? But for a good guesstimation, just touch it on the screen. Look down here in the bottom left, 312 foot, and it gives you an idea of how far away from you are. If you want to put a waypoint on that, just go ahead and do your check, waypoint, and now we go to our chart. You're going to go ahead and see that waypoint right there. And these machines are tied together. If you have your machines networked, you can set a waypoint on one and it'll set it on all the other ones that are networked. But that's basically my advice if you want to know where those fish are. Here's an osprey.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh my goodness.
Never mind.
Oh, it's gonna go off. There we go. Fish on, fish on, fish on. Fish. Go get it. Go get it. Fish on back there.
We got 3 of them.
Oh my goodness.
All right, guys, this is another video here in the series of describing sonar screenshots. There's a lot going on in this one. This is a good one because I think guys that have never even turned the fish finder on yet can get something out of this, and yet the saltiest of salty dogs can probably get something out of it as well. Most of them won't be this complex, but there's a lot of good stuff in this one, so let's get to it.
Fish on, fish on, fish on! Right here! Crank, 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 crank! Fish on, fish on!
Look at the screen. Oh my goodness. Holy cow. Is that a little better fish?
I believe it
Seems
is.
to be.
I believe it is.
Boys, this is nuts. This is absolute nuts. We got split shots on some, no weight on others. There's a screamer. Tommy, come get it, baby. All right. We got a double. Eight lines out. We just had 2 other ones on. One just came off. Tommy had one on a jig. They were breaking in front of us. Let's see. Can we do it? Get them to me. I got a short net here and a camera in my hand. There we go. Woo!
Oh, baby.
You gotta lift.
Oh, baby.
That's a fatty. Good job, Joe.
Team Old School, thank you
Nice.
for bringing me out.
Look at the screen out here, guys. All right, stick around. Bro, that is a nice eel fish on the Raritan Bay. TOS float.
Old
Good
school,
job,
baby.
Good job, brother.
Let's let him go. Right
I gotta
down.
say, that's one of the prettiest things I've ever seen in my life. Right?
Right back down.
Going right there. Good job,
Let her
brother.
go, let her grow.
Good job.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Look at that. Woo!
All right, so we see we have 4 panels here. Top left corner, we have a transducer set to 200 kilohertz. It is an Airmar B175 high wide. The next panel to the right, going clockwise, is our down scan. That is an active imaging 3-in-1 transducer. The next to the right, going clockwise, is a B175 medium chirp transducer. Now, all of my transducers are chirp transducers, okay? Aside from the active imaging, which is a 3-in-1, which has, you know, high chirp, medium chirp, down scan, side scan, 200 kilohertz fixed frequency, and 83 kilohertz fixed frequency. Anytime you're going to see an Airmar transducer, or basically when I'm using 2D, most of the time it's going to be an Airmar chirp transducer, okay? The bottom panel is our side scan. We get that from our active imaging transducer as well. It's an 800 kilohertz, okay? On the top 3 panels, right away, you're going to see a bar right across the middle of the screen, right around 13 feet down. You'll see here by the arrow here. I'll put an arrow there for you on the left panel. That is the pycnocline. What that is the change in salinity. So the saltier water tends to sink. It's heavier. So particles in the water, debris that will sink in fresh water may not sink in salt water. So it'll sink down through the fresh water, which is less dense, and will actually float in the salt water that is more dense. So you're going to see that band of debris that's hovering there. That could be any particles, branches, leaves, just tiny microscopic stuff. And right away you're going to notice that the fish are hanging below that pycnocline. It could be just a coincidence that that's where the temperature break is, but I believe they like that water that has a little more salinity to it. So just something to pick up on, something to notice. All right, lots of fish on this screen. Okay, down in the side scan, you can just see they're everywhere. So the white bar down the middle of the side scan panel, we're in the bottom panel now on the bottom. See that white bar going down the middle, that's the keel line of the boat. Now with active imaging, one thing that I've seen that I have not seen in any other type of side scan, and I know I sound like a broken record in some of my videos, but I'm just so impressed with it, is that it can show fish that are far from the boat that aren't just on the bottom. So off to the right here by this arrow, you're going to see some fish that are far away from the boat. They're about, you know, the 55 mark, 60 mark, you know, from the keel of the boat there. And you're going to see that the targets aren't just sitting straight on the bottom. Their shadows aren't right on top of them. So usually if the shadow is right on top of your target, it means it's right on the bottom. Okay. Now we know these fish are in the lower part of the water column. We can tell that by our down scan and our 2D panels up top. We can see it's at the pycnocline and below. So they're close to the bottom, but they're not necessarily on the bottom. So it's one thing that I've been so impressed with my active imaging is I can pick up fish that are far from the boat that aren't sitting on the bottom. So next time you're out with your side scan and you're on a big school of fish, note, are you seeing them far from the boat, like over the bottom return? What I mean by the bottom return is you'll see the section here between this arrow and between this arrow. That is the bottom. Okay, that's the bottom return. Are you seeing solid returns there, or are you seeing just shadows? And I don't mean just in the first part of the bottom. I mean like all the way across that full stretch of bottom. Are you seeing returns all the way through there, or are you just seeing the shadows? That's one thing with active imaging that I've been so impressed with. All right, one other thing you're going to notice here is in the top left panel here, I have my high chirp transducer set to 200 kilohertz. And why not chirp? Why set it to 200 kilohertz, right? Well, in less than 30 feet of water, I find that my single fixed frequency settings give me a little cleaner image than a chirp setting. So if you look at that same panel, the upper left panel, 200 kilohertz, you can see a stack of striped bass on the bottom. These weren't terribly huge fish. These were in the 8 to 15 pound range. We caught a mess of them, so I'm sure of that. You're going to see the incredible separation, especially like down here, like right on the bottom of all those returns. You're still going to see arches down in there in good separation with some blue in there. Now if you look over to the far right panel where I left my medium chirp transducer set to chirp, you're still seeing all those fish, but if you notice, they don't look as defined. It's a little more of a jumbled mess. The arches aren't quite as defined. We're going 3.7 miles an hour, so we should see arches instead of long worms. And we're still seeing separation on the bottom there, but you can see if we're counting up those fish, it looks like a whole lot less individual fish than the left side, because we have just a whole lot more separation. Not a whole lot more, but more. You know, it looks like there's more fish. It's just because I personally, the characteristics of my chirp transducers, I've tested lots and lots of them for Airmar, and I find that in less than 30 feet of water, I get better results with a fixed frequency. I just get a little more separation there. Now, I don't want this to be confusing where guys say, oh, well, I only fish in 30 feet of water, so I don't need a chirp transducer because I'm always using fixed frequency anyway. No, I don't want that to be misleading. You definitely won't get the same results setting a less expensive transducer to a fixed frequency as you will with a more expensive chirp transducer. One reason is related to the Q rating. Airmar uses a Q rating on their transducers. The lower the Q rating, the less ringing, kind of like a tuning fork. The less ringing, the better. Some of the less expensive Airmar transducers, like the P66, have higher Q ratings. They're fine transducers, but you definitely won't see the same results as setting a chirp transducer with a low Q rating to a fixed frequency. There are lots of other technical reasons why that is, but I really don't know them all, to be honest with you. There's books and books and books of that stuff written on this. Real technical stuff, you know. So I'm sorry if I got a little complex there. I hate doing that. But one guy, I told him, I said, I don't set my transducer to chirp until I'm at least 30 feet deep. And he says, well, I never fish 30 feet deep, so I'll stick with my inexpensive fixed frequency. I said, no, you will still see a huge performance increase with a chirp transducer, even if you set it to fixed frequency over an inexpensive transducer with a low Q rating like a $100 transducer. So I hope that makes sense. All right, let's see what else we have going on here. That's about it on this one, I think. Looks pretty good. It's a great screen shot here to show you guys. One thing you'll notice too, with all these different frequencies going on, we have 200, we have 800 with the down scan and side scan. We have medium chirp, so that's floating anywhere between 85 and 175, I think, with this transducer, maybe 165, I'm not sure exactly. But all those frequencies happening all at once, you notice we're not seeing a lot of noise. Again, that's because of the high Q rating of these transducers. Even the Airmar, even the Simrad active imaging transducer is such a clean transducer, such a high quality unit that you don't see noise. I don't have any interference filters on. If you've watched any of my other setup videos, you know I hate interference filters. I never turn them on. Even if I get some noise, it's fine. I don't like using my filters. And you can see how clean these are. So I'm running multiple transducers here, getting a lot of clean shots. And I have to credit that with the quality of the transducers. The active imaging 3-in-1, the 2-in-1, amazing transducers. The best side scan I've seen. And of course the Airmar chirp transducers are just out of this world. So I think that wraps it up for this one. In just a few minutes, I'm going to show you how to set up your side scan. It's really simple. On my side scan page right here, this is the right side of the boat, left side of the boat. This is all bait fish we're seeing here. These individual marks are striped bass. Now I'm explaining what a return looks like versus a shadow. So right here, you're seeing all the bait fish here. These shadows here are far away. So if you have your return here, nice solid, it'll be that whitish color. That is actually fish, okay? Anytime I say return, it's going to be a fish, a rock, a stump, something solid. So that's your fish. Those are your shadows. See how far apart they are? That means these fish are just below the surface. If the shadows were extremely close to the return, that means those fish are on the bottom. So in our settings here, in a menu, make sure it's highlighted in orange here. So we're going to hit our menu. And we have our source. That is the transducer I'm using. So I'm using a transducer plugged into this 12-inch. That's why the source we have selected is the 12. Range, you can leave that in auto. I usually leave it in manual so I can adjust it myself, but select your auto. Frequency, depends which transducer you have. If you have a side scan only transducer, if you have a total scan transducer 3-in-1, you want to leave it in 455 most of the time. If you have a active imaging transducer, leave it in 800. Leave it in 800 for active imaging 3-in-1 transducer. Palette take your pick, wherever you like. I like this one the best. In here, in our contrast, I have it here at auto -5. I will tweak that just a little bit sometimes, because you can see when I go all the way to regular auto, I get kind of white hot bars there. So I will reduce my contrast just till that softens up a little bit. But it's been a long time since I've ever even looked into here. I was kind of surprised to see it -5, to be honest with you. Advanced TVG, again, that deals with clearing up returns close to the boat, and that would be these right here in this black area that is directly under us. So you see, as I reduce it, more stuff appears. As I increase it, it starts to filter out all that little stuff. You get a nice clean screen, but I want to be able to see that bait, so I don't mind the noise. There's a striped bass right there, just straight past there, see his shadow. So my TVG, leave it at 0. And flip, this means it will flip the image of the transducer if you have your transducer installed forward or backward. So you can install it with the wire in the front or the wire in the back, and then you hit that flip button. View is left and right, that's what I have here. If I hit left only, it'll give you the whole bar on the left. Right only, it gives me the whole section on the right. Go back to left and right. That is all the basics of it right there. That is the only settings you really need to mess with on a Simrad side scan. One little thing that very few people know, I don't know why that is, but it's pretty important. Your range numbers up here. So you see 20, 40, 60, 80. That's where I have my range set right now. And you saw that striped bass right by that 20 mark. So that fish is right underneath the 20 mark, but it's not 20 feet away. All right, you see these dots right here? That is Dave jigging the spoons. Keep it going, Dave. You see the dots where it says 20 foot? It's almost at the 20 foot mark to the left. But the jig isn't 20 foot to the left, it's straight under us. So Dave, stop now. Just like reel it up and stop it. Okay, you see it stopped, right? No dots now. So it was right about the 18 or 19 foot mark to the left, but it's straight under the boat. All right, drop it down. Okay, he's jigging it again. Okay, and there it is again. You can see his spoon. If you can see that, it's not too bright. So he's working that spoon. Reduce the brightness here a little bit. Okay, good. There's Dave jigging. That's his dots from his spoon that is directly under the boat. It's not 20 foot to the left. Okay, side scan. That's the 10 mark. So 12 foot to the left, you can see that squiggly line. That is Tim's spoon. He's working. So you see him working. 12 foot to the left, 13 foot, maybe almost 15 foot, about 14 foot to the left. But his jig is straight up and down under the boat. So you can see, I don't know if you can see. There's no angle. There's straight down. I know it's crappy, but it's hard to see. But his line is straight up and down. So 4 foot to the left, 4 foot to the left, yet the mark is right about 14 to 15 foot on here. So you do have to subtract a little bit of the depth to get the true distance, left or right. So, all right, stop, hold it right there, don't bring it down. Okay. And that is it. It's super simple. I was kind of surprised to even see one of my settings. Was it a -5 on contrast, because I really haven't messed with it in a while. Once you get it set up, you don't have to keep messing with it in most cases. You can see how we started moving. The screen looks different. You see when I was just showing you how to do your setup, it looks blurry like that. That's because we were drifting. Once you get the boat moving again, the bottom looks nice and smooth. So if you're drifting and you're seeing these, that's all it is, just because you're drifting. It's really designed to be the clearest when the boat is moving. All those fish. Up in 7 feet of water, man. They're sitting right on top of this hump, Mike. that shows you how valuable side scan is, guys. I see all these fish. You found another snotchel. Hard to find them today, but jeez. Tommy approves.
Without wrong with it, but
Wow.
well, that was a good call there, man. It's
Still marking.
time to play the game.
And you're now watching Team Old School Striper Fishing on the tuna.com. Team Old School Striper Fishing.
I'm going to show you right now how to set up your fish finder so you see fish like that. I'm going to show you how to do it right now. Alright kids, I'm going to show you how to set up your fish finder in just a few minutes. Super quick. I'm going to go to my sonar page here. That's what we're going to work on first. Or what they call 2D sonar or traditional sonar. We are using a chirp transducer. Don't worry about that. The setting and the setup is the same no matter your transducer. So right away you get on the boat, first thing you want to adjust is your color. So right over here, our color is here on an Evo 3. It is similar for a lot of fish finders. The go is also here, right here, color. So our color right here, we're going to go ahead and set it to between 75 and 80%. To get started, okay, anywhere between 75 and 85. Then we're going to go to our gain. Leave your gain at auto. Okay, the old auto gains were kind of strange. They would do some weird things, and that's why we always used manual years ago. But this auto gain is different. What it does is it finds a medium, and then as you start riding, if the bottom comes up, you obviously need less energy because you're shallow water. Your pings and you know, the beam is traveling less of a distance, you don't need as much power. So in shallow water it reduces the gain slightly, and in deeper water it increases it. So it's not like the old auto. This auto is good. I leave it auto almost all the time. Okay, already marking some fish. So now we have our color set between 75 and 80. Our gain is at auto, and here in our menu, range, auto. Okay, frequency, this is just whatever your transducer has available to you. So if you're here and you see like 10 or more frequencies, you probably are confusing your machine with a transducer that is hooked up that shouldn't be. Sometimes you get some strange options there, and your temperature is usually way out of whack. So if your temperature is out of whack and you have high chirp, low chirp, medium chirp, and everything in your menu here, your machine thinks you have a different transducer hooked up than you do.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Mike is hooked up. Oh, he let that one go for me so I can continue. Thanks. Okay. Source, you don't really need all this. This is selecting your transducer. I'm selecting that one there. If I had a transducer that was plugged directly to the back of this, I would select this unit. It would say this unit. In our advanced, our TVG, I wanted it 0 because I want to see all this up here. Some people don't like that. If you raise your TVG, it filters all the stuff up near the surface. It does make for a nice clean screen, but a lot of times bait and things are close right up underneath the boat, and we don't want to filter all that out. So if you go closer to 1, it starts to let it in just a little bit. 1 lets in even more, and 0 filters out nothing. So if you really like that clean screen, crank it up. I don't recommend it though, because you will see like that school of bait right there may have been removed completely. Noise rejection, always turn it off. Always turn it off. Noise rejection takes a nice beautiful arch like that and turns it into a blob. I hate noise rejection. Scroll speed normal. Ping speed, crank it up to max. Okay, there isn't a whole lot more to it than this, guys. Select the palette you like. I like the number 1 palette on here. This is your splits. A-scope is this bar right here. If you like your A-scope, that's what it looks like with no A-scope. If you like it, I like the enhanced and appearance color. If it is line, it looks like that. If it's fill, it looks like that. I like color. And that is how you basically set up your fish finder to look fantastic. Okay, that was just a minute or two. Real quick how to set it up, and I don't mess with these settings usually. I might tweak the gain, I might crank it up just a little bit if we're running faster, but I usually don't. It usually adjusts itself just fine.
What does striped bass look like on plane? There you go.
There you go. That's what they look like. Hey guys, thanks for clicking on this one, and I want to take a few seconds here and show you how I mark fish on plane. It's a big part of what we do. We spend a lot of time cruising usually the river channels and shipping channels. Freshwater, saltwater, it's all the same. And we will kind of cruise the edge of those channels going up into the shallow water, across the channel and back. I usually run between 20 and 30 miles an hour. And I have through-hull transducers now, but I did this for years and years and years with transamount transducers. And I actually still have 2 transamount transducers on here that I do use. I have more transducers than the average boat only because I do some testing for Airmar and Simrad, but I still use these transamounts. So I'm going to show you how I set them up. It's a little technical. I hope I can explain it so I don't, you know, bewilder some people and lose you guys on this one. But if you pay attention pretty closely, you'll see how I do it. You're gonna need one of these, okay? And go to your transducer and do that. Okay? That is ugly, right? That is the key. I can probably go up a little bit. Right about there. So if you see, get your front edge of your transducer just about I don't know, what's that? Maybe a 1/4 of an inch below the front or below the transom edge right there. And yes, you might hit something. And once you have it a little bit below, tilt the following edge down a little bit. So as pressure water comes across the bottom here on the face of the transducer, it increases the pressure against the face of that transducer, squeezes out any air. Now a lot of transducers are not installed like that, and the guys that spend a lot of time with rulers and levels and stuff to get it just right like to disagree with me on this one, which is fine. You know, everyone's got their own way of doing it. And instead of having my transducers like this, they want to set theirs actually the other way. So as the boat planes out, the transducer lays flat in the water. And for some boats, that's great. If that works for you, if you can mark fish at 25, 30 miles an hour that way, go for it. It'll keep your transducer safer. If you almost will never hit anything that way because the boat is protecting your transducer as it plows through the water, you know. Even when the boat is planed, if you have your transducer like this, when it levels out, it's pretty safe, you know. I may damage my transducer, but I haven't damaged one yet. I have hit stuff, I have collected stuff on them, but if you don't tighten your bolts all the way down on the sides of your bracket, it will kick up, you know, if something hits it. This is an aggressive way to do it. When my boat is very level in the water, sometimes my arches are a little crooked because when I'm just drifting, my transducer is down a little bit, obviously, and I'll get crooked arches sometimes, but I need this to work when I'm running. So if you do the traditional way, like a lot of people do, it's great under perfect calm conditions and you can mark fish on plane. But if it's on the left side, on the port side like this, and you make a right-hand turn, it'll come out of the water a little bit. If you're any chop at all, it can come out of the water a little bit. If you push your following edge down like this, especially on a installation like this, where I have it on a lifting strake, there's another one on a lifting strake there. I have had very good success with this. This is the, let me see here, this is my 4th Sea Pro, and they've all had these same lifting strakes, and I've had great success with it. So on that side, I have my active imaging transducer. I use this for my side scan. Now, the side scan doesn't work as well as regular chirp or traditional sonar does on plane. It works a little better going slower, but I can mark bait schools at 25 miles an hour, even 30 a little bit, you know. I don't really mark stripers with the side scan at that speed, but I do mark bait very well. It just looks cloudy, it's no detail, but I can tell it's bait. All right, over here I got my chirp transducer. This is a 165 high wide by Airmar. It's an extra wide. You can see the front is about 1/4 of an inch. This one might be a little more than 1/4 inch below the bottom of the boat. And the following edge is towed down slightly, the same way as the other transducer. Now this has a kick up bracket. If something does hit it, it will pop the bracket up and save the transducer. But of course, you may hit something and destroy it. I mean, I haven't done it. I don't think you will under normal circumstances because I haven't done it. So if I haven't destroyed one, I'm pretty sure you guys will be all right. But the chances there, if you whack something going fast enough, you could ruin your transducer. But with so many people asking me how I mark my fish on plane, that is the key right there. Got to keep pressure across the face of that transducer, squeeze out the air, and even with it tilted down like this, it actually helps a little bit because it looks slightly forward. You know, and you could even tow it a little further down than that, you know. Don't be afraid. Like I said, your arches might not be as pretty, but you'll mark fish up to 30 miles an hour. I'll even mark fish a little faster than that, but I like to run right between 20 and 30. If I start getting into some nice areas, I'll slow down a little more. When you look at this footage, it looks like the marks are very close together. These fish were actually spread apart over a long flat area. They look very close together because the boat is moving pretty fast. So the boat is moving quickly and all those arches look tight. When I drop off a plane, you'll see how they're much further apart than they actually appeared at first glance as we're running. I'll come off a plane, you'll see the arches. I kind of turn back around to go through them, and you can see the difference, what they look like when I'm running at 20, 23, 24, and when I drop down to 4 or 5 miles an hour. They turn back into arches. But when we're running, they're more like little dashes. I call them light bulbs now, even though they don't look like light bulbs, but way back in the day when I had the old interphase transducers, they looked more like light bulbs. So I just keep calling them light bulbs out of habit, I guess, out of tradition. But thanks again for watching, guys. I really do appreciate your support. You guys are the best. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer all of them. Please subscribe if you haven't. It really, really helps me out. A thumbs up really helps too. Even a thumbs down, that's cool. If you didn't like the video, you can do one of those. Stay safe on the water. Leave a few for me. Love you. Mean it.
What does striped bass look like on plane? There you go. I'm gonna go ahead and show you. Ready? 24 miles an hour, 25. There they are. Oh my God. Looks like we were starting to come at them anyway, but you can see how many more frequently we were seeing them and how small they looked. There you go. They're not all on top of each other, just all scattered through here. They look like. So if you're running on plane and you're still looking for arches like that, you won't really see them. You got to slow down to see them like that. So going wide open, they look different. All right, you guys want to know what fish look like at speed? We were running about 28, 30 miles an hour, and we saw nothing here. And we came across light bulbs. That's what I call, like, that's what a school of striped bass look like at about 30 miles an hour. So I dropped off a plane, and now you can see what they look like. That's what they look like right there. Look at that, guys. Drop them down. Oh my goodness.
Hey guys, thanks for clicking on this one. I want to thank Buck Rocker for coming up with this idea. I think it's a great idea for a simple video. I think this will help a lot of people out. A big question is, what frequency should I use when I'm fishing? You know, fish finders today have a whole range of options now. Frequencies, high chirp, medium chirp, low chirp, and everything else in between, not like it used to be, you know. So there's a lot of confusion, and I understand. I mean, if you talk to a dealer or, you know, online, it's very hard to find exactly what people recommend. There's just not a whole lot out there. So everything that I've learned over the years, being a tester for Simrad and Airmar, I've learned a few things. Striper fishing, mainly. Now, when I striper fish, I don't go very deep. So if you're, you know, a guy who fishes like for swordfish, 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet, stuff like that, this may not help you, but it might, because I'm going to keep it real simple and very basic. This is an old chart I had. I did doing a chirp sonar video. It's kind of beat up and stuff, but I think it'd be good for this one, and I'm going to keep it as short as possible. Most out of the box transducers, like 3-in-1s, or, you know, anything where you have everything built into one transducer, you're going to have the options of a high chirp or 200 kilohertz, a medium chirp or 83. Some of the older ones will have a 200 or a 50. Now, whenever I say high, medium, or low, high means high chirp, medium and low chirp, of course, but high chirp usually floats around 200 kilohertz. Depending on what model transducer, there's all kinds of different models and configurations, but this is probably going to be right for 99% of you guys out there. So the high frequency range will be, you know, right around 200. With the chirp transducer, it's probably going to be like 150 to 250, something like that. Medium is going to be right around 83 kilohertz, but of course it's going to go lower and higher if it's chirp. Low will be around 50 kilohertz, but it's going to be lower and higher if it's chirp. So I have a little band up here I can put on here to show you the chirp frequencies as well. But let's start with single. Most people are going to use single, right? That's what most inexpensive transducers have. So 200 kilohertz is in the high zone right there. For most fishing, that's going to be great. The advantages to high is it's a very narrow cone usually. Now, because these frequencies are coupled with a cone, it doesn't mean that this frequency makes this cone. It just usually means that that's the way they're built. That's just a characteristic of the transducer. A 200 kilohertz high range transducer usually has a narrow cone. It doesn't mean that this frequency makes it a narrow cone. It just means they both exist together, okay? So with high or 200 kilohertz, you're going to have more of a narrow cone usually. This means you have very good detail on the bottom. It picks up every little bump. But you have a very narrow cone, so you're not going to find suspended fish as easily. Because the closer to the surface, the closer to the cone or the transducer, it gets very narrow up here, and it's hard to mark those fish, especially if you're sitting still and moving slowly. Moving to medium, it's usually a wider cone, right around the 83 kilohertz area, which is very good for running on plane looking for suspended fish, because you have that wider cone, you can catch those targets easy, but you're going to lose some detail on the bottom. These are good for shallower areas in the high. The medium is good for slightly deeper, and the lower are good for the deepest waters you're going to fish. So moving from 83 in the medium area to our low area in the 50 kilohertz usually means a very wide cone. Now, a very wide cone is excellent for marking suspended fish, especially if you're running and scouting. Detail on the bottom is pretty bad though. It's kind of hard to decipher that detail when it's covering such a large area. So you may go over a hump and drop off and it may show it almost flat sometimes. But you're going to see all kinds of suspended fish because you're looking at such a big area. Now, the biggest mistake I see, and I'm telling you, I dealt with some commercial tuna fishermen who are the top of their game, and they got this one wrong, and it's very common. And it's easy to see why it's an easy mistake to make. Some people think that a narrow cone is better for deeper water because the cone is narrower, and we're thinking, well, it's narrow, so it's concentrated, so it must travel deeper. The cone has nothing to do with how deep it works. It's all in the frequencies. So you may look at a 50 and say, look how wide that cone is. It probably doesn't go very deep. It has nothing to do with the cone. It's all about the frequencies. I talked to the people at Airmar, and that's exactly what they say. They say, Mike, it has nothing to do with the cone. The frequency is what makes it work deeper, better. Actually, Simrad just posted up a video. It's really pretty cool. These guys are sword fishing. I'll put a link to it in the video. I'll put it right here, the link, if you want to check it out. And in that link they have high and low chirp, high and low frequencies working right next to each other on one screen. And although the high worked in like 1,000 feet or more, it didn't show swordfish. The low showed those swordfish. So it's a pretty cool little video to check out. Now for the guys using chirp, this may help just a little bit. Now keep in mind, this does vary again from transducer to transducer. I'm trying to keep it simple. I don't want to use big crazy terms that even I half understand, you know. But I put up the bar here to change everything to chirp. So if you're in chirp, everything still is the same, okay? In your high, this is what was 200 kilohertz. That's the range you would have. That's the bandwidth you would have if you're using chirp with this branded transducer. They may change to your brand. This is the 83 fixed frequency, but in a chirp transducer, you'll have a choice of 83 or medium chirp, which will be a band somewhere in these numbers. And here is the low chirp, or the 50 kilohertz area. And in low chirp, you get a bandwidth in these numbers here. So the biggest difference between chirp and fixed frequency is you get a band of frequencies, a bandwidth, versus one particular frequency in 50. In medium, you get a bandwidth here, medium chirp. If it was a fixed frequency of 83, you'd get just 83. And in the high chirp, you get a band of these frequencies. If it was a fixed frequency, it would be 200. So if you get like a high chirp transducer, and it's high chirp only, you'll get a choice of high chirp or 200. If you get a medium chirp transducer, you'll see a choice of medium or 83. If you get a low chirp transducer, you'll get a choice of low chirp or 50. They always coincide together. If you get a 3-in-1, they come with medium and high, or medium or high. So you'll have medium or high chirp and a choice of 83 kilohertz or 200. Low, you'll almost never use if you're your average sport fisherman unless you're going extremely deep. So for most fishermen, it's going to be medium high if you're fishing at less than 600 feet, let's just say. Doesn't mean 600 feet, but I'm just trying to keep it simple. So if you're running on plane and you're scouting looking for fish, I love medium chirp or 83 kilohertz. And if I'm bottom fishing, say I'm looking for a specific edge of a drop-off within a few feet and I need to know exactly where it is, say I'm fishing on a wreck, I want to use high chirp or 200 kilohertz for that. If I'm not looking for a specific piece on the bottom, I'm going to stay in medium or 83 all the time. There is an exception to the rule with fixed cone transducers. I have one. It is a 200 kilohertz or a high wide chirp. Now what they've done is, with this particular transducer, let's see, the TM165 super wide is one of them, the B175 wide is one of them, and the TM185 high is one of them. I've had all of them, and they're all fantastic transducers, and they're all fixed at a wide cone. So what they did with these wide transducers, they took the frequency of the high bandwidth for chirp, which is this bandwidth here, or 200 kilohertz fixed, and they've given it a wide cone no matter what. So in the 175 wide, high wide, and the 185 high wide, I believe it's 25 degree cone. It may be 20, but I believe it's 25. It's a nice wide cone all the time. And I believe the 165 is a 29 degree cone, but I'm not sure exactly. I'll put everything in the description there, and I'll put, you know, all the links to all these if you guys want to check them out. All I know is the 165 is definitely wider than the regular high wides. It's like a super wide or extra wide. So in those cases, it's always going to be wide, and that's what's kind of cool about these transducers, the high wides. If you're a shallow water fisherman, so you have less than 100 feet, those wide, super wide cones are awesome for finding fish. You're not going to have the exact same detail on the bottom, like I said, but if you're looking for fish and scouting all the time, those wides are really, really killer transducers. Now, as far as deciding when to use chirp or when to use your fixed frequency, like when to use medium or when to use 83, that's up to you. The reason I say that is every transducer is different. I've been on some boats where medium chirp performs unbelievably, and I switched to 83 and it looks pretty crappy. And I've had to do the absolute opposite, especially when you're dealing with these shallower waters. So if you have that choice of high chirp or 200, play with both. Chances are chirp will be a little bit better for you, but if you're fishing very shallow, 20 foot, 15 foot a lot, maybe a largemouth bass fisherman, crappie fisherman, something like that, you might want the fixed frequency. So I urge you definitely try both, play with both. All right guys, I hope I kept it simple enough for you. In the end of the day, we're all just fishermen. We're not out there to be electrical engineers and memorize all this stuff, you know. We just want to catch more fish and use our equipment to the best of its ability. Please, in the comments, put any question you may have. I'll do my best to answer them. And please subscribe if you haven't, and definitely please give a thumbs up to this video. You guys have no idea how that helps me out, and it keeps me in the position to make more videos. The algorithm and all that stuff on YouTube is so bad these days. A lot of guys are really struggling, and some videos just doing all kinds of crazy things. And a thumbs up really helps me out. It only takes a second. I would really appreciate it. Remember, good juju on the water goes a long way, so a thumbs up will help you with there, I promise you. Please stay safe on the water. Leave a few for me. Love you. Mean it.
All right, running out, it's the same old story. Started the channel. If you just find the channel, it's a good piece of structure that everyone can find, right? It's right on your chart. You can even find it on your phone. So we have our channel. Now I'm gonna cruise the edge of that channel. And I'm doing I'll do about, say, less than 30. 25, usually trim the boat way down, and I'll crisscross the edge of the channel. I'll stay on the inside edge for a while. If I don't see anything, I'll move to the outer edge. Or sometimes we'll stay on the inner edge going out and the other edge coming back in. And we're not just running to a spot, we're looking right away. Sometimes we find what we need right at the ramp, you know, so always looking right away. So we're seeing some broken up bait. Those are stripers right there. We're seeing some bait up here and some stripers right there. We're seeing some good stuff already. Yeah. Lots of bait? Or? Lots of bait, some stripers first. And we get some bunker up top. Yeah, big schools of bunker. Man, look at this. This is what we like to see. This is where we jig those flutter spoons a lot, right around all this bunker. We're seeing some stripers here, seeing the shadows, see the returns right there. They don't look like giant fish, but those are stripers. All right, here we go. All right, grab your spoons, guys. Here they are. Tons of fish, lots of fish. Lots of good marks here. Let's try to get at least one spoon down so we can get them close hanging around by us. Yeah, so we can keep them by us. Look at the screen, guys. Look at that screen.
Tell me you want in here.
Wow, that is full.
Oh no.
Somebody catch a fish. Oh yeah.
I think I'm stuck.
Yeah, you're stuck.
Stuck on you. This fish is going everywhere. Just look at the size of this horse. Old school vertical.
So how long we been out here? How long we been out here?
That's 37 seconds.
Stop the boat 30 seconds.
Okay.
Hate to brag, but we will brag. That's crazy, guys.
Look at the size of this horse, Cap. Look at
Don't go past
Cap,
that.
look at him.
It's a beauty, man.
Fish is
Don't go past the
okay.
we'll call it the oh heck point, right?
Yes, sir. Look at this horse.
Where's your drag to? Yours is at the yeah, right on the where it kind of wants to stop. Right there. That is a horse, son. That fish has got shoulders.
This is old school at its best. Thank you, Captain Mike.
Thank you, bro. Vietnam veteran, you kidding me?
I think this fish is as old as me.
You're welcome on this boat before I'm welcome on this
Look
boat.
at it, look at him, look at him. Look at him, look at him.
And what color spoon is that?
It's the brand new copper.
It is a brand
Captain
new
Mike's special order.
Team Old School pattern.
Yes, it is.
People at Nichols are awesome, man. They made these patterns for us. Want to do an all copper spoon? First time we put one down, honestly, right? First time we put one down?
Yes, sir.
I haven't tried one yet. It's only the second time
Over
out.
this horse.
That's a toad, man. That's a toad. Here, record this for me real quick. Don't drop it. Just stay on me. It's a good fish, man. Just keep the line tight, keep
Yes,
pulling,
sir.
don't let it go slack. Pull,
Yes,
pull,
sir,
pull,
yes, sir,
pull.
yes, sir, yes, sir.
Ready? Cameraman.
Oh!
Oh yeah. That is a beaut on the copper. It's a Team Old School pattern. You can get it at the Nichols website. Go to their Ben Parker spoons, and we got 2 colors that we're just trying out. And they're doing good. Honestly, guys, first time we put them down, but you know, we put them down in a pile of fish. To be honest, I'm sure any color would work right here, but this one seemed to whack one first, so let's get her back as soon as we can. Very nice. Look at that fish, son. You want to hold her? Is a nice fish.
Yay.
Come close with that. Come here.
That's how you buck.
Look at that. Woo! Good job, John.
Thank you, Captain.
Nice. Woo! Look at that screen.
That's it.